on this edition of Cronkite Sports Report.
The story of a leader on and off the field.
ASU hockey celebrates an anniversary.
A hockey player opens up about his experiences with racism.
The challenges of scouting during COVID-19.
And an athlete's journey to professional boxing.
These stories coming your way now on Cronkite Sports Report. Hello and welcome into Cronkite Sports Report. I'm Rachel Phillips.
And I'm Tiara Rose. We begin with the story of how an ASU lacrosse player has dealt with the changes of the pandemic.
From one field to another, Emiliano Fragoso takes a look at how Colton Houston became a soldier on and off the field.
When COVID-19 shut down sports back in March, most student athletes were left without a plan and scrambling without a season to play. Some stayed on campus while most returned home. But for others, like newly appointed ASU men's lacrosse captain Colton Houston, the line of duty awaited.
During May, I decided, I wanted to get out and do something else, and I joined the Army Reserves. I enlisted as a 46th Sierra Public Affairs Mass Communications Specialist, and then I left on June 2nd to go to basic training at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and I got back in August.
And for Houston, this was more than just a chance to serve his country, as he follows on a long line of military members.
My dad was in the Army when he joined during college as well, and then he was active duty for a couple years, and then he was in the National Guard. And it was always something that was in the back of my mind. I just decided, I wanted to do something else with my life. I wanted to get more experience out there, and I'm super proud to be a soldier. I'm the third generation, and it's the best decision I made, honestly.
And as the third generation in his family, Houston credits his dad for helping shape his leadership skills along the way.
I personally would attribute that to my dad. He's the best leader, person that I know, and he always told me growing up how I should do things, and he knew that I wanted to be a leader, and he always helped me with those leadership roles. He's the best leader that I know personally, and he's helped me a lot just grow as that in any aspect of my life.
And those life lessons he took from his dad led him to new leadership philosophies he took from both the lacrosse field and the battlefield.
Definitely always tried to be a leader, but I think a big important part about being a leader is knowing when to be a follower. That's definitely a very different experience than as to being a captain on a team. You're leading a lot more people, and they're trying to prepare you to lead people into war, something that you're not always you're not used to until you're in that environment.
But while Colton recalls the unpredictability of military life, head coach Casey Connor looks forward to seeing how Houston's time in Oklahoma will translate on the field.
That says a lot about him. There's not a lot of kids that are cut out for doing any level of military whatsoever. I think, there's a certain breed of those types of people. And, Colton's the kind of kid that I would expect to fall into that category. So I was happy that he got, the opportunity to do that. It went successful for him, and I'm looking forward to see how it translates now for him on the field.
And Colton feels the same way about his coach, always having his players' backs.
He's definitely somebody that would go to war for you, and I'd gladly fall right behind him.
And thanks to his team-first attitude, Houston was able to become a captain this season, unsurprising to some, including midfielder Chaz Messman, who has watched Colton lead by example since joining the team.
Colton had kind of always been a vocal guy during practice on the sideline and stuff, even though he wasn't necessarily one of the biggest, guys in the field or contributors in terms of playtime on the field. And I think people started to respect how hard he worked in practice and how hard he ran during games. And I think he built up a reputation and a role on the team where a lot of the younger guys just started to really respond well and started to admire the way he would just grind out every day. And I think that's really what, the coaches saw in him and what a lot of the other guys see in him.
My role and my goal just for the season is to be the best leader I can be. I may not have always been the fastest kid on the field or the hardest hitting, but I always try to be as smart as I can and have 100% effort and just be someone to lead by example, and never ask anything of any of the other players on the team that I wouldn't do myself personally.
While men's lacrosse remains a mystery if they'll even have a season come springtime, Houston is ready for anything thrown his way, a true soldier on and off the field. Emiliano Fragoso, Cronkite Sports Report.
Houston and ASU men's lacrosse team are looking forward to the upcoming season.
When you think of hockey, you may think of Canada, the Midwest, or somewhere cold.
Lauren Shirley tells us how ASU is changing that perception as they show that Division I hockey belongs in the desert.
Arizona State Sun Devil hockey has been on the rise since the program began its transition in 2014, from a successful club team to the NCAA Division I ranks.
We've been very process-oriented and focused from day one in perfecting all of our processes. We're still evolving, we're still perfecting them, but we have them much more dialed in so many different ways. And we feel like we're not flying blind anymore. We know what we're getting into in every situation. We know how to prepare for every situation. And that's the biggest change, I think, and difference, and probably the biggest reason for our success.
Justin Emerson, ASU hockey beat reporter in 2014, remembers the announcement when the Sun Devils made the move.
It was clear to everybody what was about to happen, and then they announced that they're going to be a Division I program, and it was the coolest thing.
We never intended for it to go NCAA. That was never the goal. We just wanted to become the very best club program in the country. We did that. We focused on what was in front of us. We became the very best. It caught the right people's attention. And here we are trying to do it again at this level.
This year marks the 5-year anniversary since the Sun Devils became a Division I program, and this season is unlike any other that they have ever played. After competing as an independent team, ASU is playing all of their games on the road this year against Big Ten teams, only due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic.
It certainly can help our brand even more than we've already helped itself already. Playing against like-minded Power 5 institutions only certainly will help, I think, our brand from a business standpoint.
ASU's hockey team has not only experienced success on the ice, but away from the rink as well.
Obviously, we won't have the ability to have our home games there, so that'll affect revenue. But if we're on the road, we also don't have the expense of having to rent a facility and practice there as much as we normally would. I think the key here is to perform well, and as we get into the future, and then we move to our new arena in a couple of years, and have the avidity and fan engagement that we expect to pull from our last 2 seasons, and then when we use that to catapult and go into our new facility.
Senior Philip Buncis, who came to ASU from Latvia in 2017, has enjoyed being a part of the program's ascension in the desert.
We've been able to grow and develop, on a daily basis, like week by week, month by month. Literally, like every weekend we get better and better. And over the years, we got some great players coming in. Guys are working really hard. I think that's the main reason why we've been able to kind of achieve what we have so far.
The Sun Devil hockey program has been an ongoing success story over the last 5 years. From transitioning from club champions to a Division I program, the support has been there since day one.
Support's been incredible. It continues to grow even through a pandemic.
Emerson remembers the day very clearly, being alongside Vice President of Sun Devil Athletics, Ray Anderson, when he received the call from Don Mullet, a businessman from Wisconsin, whose son had played hockey at ASU that changed the trajectory of the program's future.
When Anderson got the call from the Mullets and from the people that were willing to finance it, I think he took it very seriously. And I think that there was a lot of support once it became clear that this was a real possibility.
The program came from humble beginnings without much fanfare, but success was always in its future.
Professionalism with which Powers and his staff always treated the club program was a good indicator that it was going to be successful at Division I, because they didn't treat it that much different. They'd been treating themselves as if they were a Division I program for a long time.
The Sun Devils are not only skating to success in the NCAA, but the sport of hockey has become more popular throughout the Southwest as well.
Yeah, hockey's growing exponentially here. It shows in the high levels that Arizona kids are attaining. The best player in the world is from Scottsdale, and Austin Matthews. We've had the NHL here for over 20 years, and now Division I hockey. We have an American League team in Tucson. We've had a Central Hockey League team in Prescott. It's for everybody, and it's for anyone that lives anywhere to play.
As hockey continues to grow in the Southwest, the Sun Devil program is looking to continue their success in the years to come. I'm Lauren Shirley for Cronkite Sports Report.
ASU also has a new state-of-the-art arena to look forward to, with construction starting next year.
Coming up next, how a social justice movement helped an ASU hockey player find his voice. Welcome back. When George Floyd was killed in Minnesota, social justice movements swept across the country.
Michael Gutnick explains how that moment inspired a black hockey player at Arizona State to share his own experiences with racism.
Dominic Garcia is the ultimate hype man. Garcia takes his uplifting spirit in stride every time he takes the ice.
For me, it's like something that's come naturally, and it's what I'm able to do effectively to help our team the most.
On the outside, Garcia exudes positive energy, but on the inside, he kept something to himself for a very long time: racial abuse.
I just remember, kind of being on the ice and hearing it.
Garcia was first called a racial slur at 10 years old during Pee Wee hockey. It didn't stop there. It continued with him from Nevada to Indiana to Pennsylvania.
For me, it was just another thing I've gone through.
When the death of George Floyd sparked an outcry for social justice across the country, Garcia wasn't sure whether to stand and speak up. That's when ASU head coach Greg Powers, along with Mitch Terrell, the team's sports information director, provided Garcia the team's platform to be heard.
Mitch ran the idea by me, and obviously I was fully supportive of it, and then reached out to Dom just like Mitch did, and Dom took it and ran with it.
On June 17th, Garcia released a letter, a powerful yet heartbreaking statement that shocked his teammates and coaches.
I honestly didn't know. I didn't really talk to him about prior to that, what he's gone through and stuff like that, and to hear, some of his stories and, some of the things that he had to go through it was pretty heartbreaking, to be honest.
Yeah, I was sad, just because he's such a happy-go-lucky kid, and I haven't seen that part of him.
What was most surprising? Garcia hadn't told anyone, not even his mother.
After reading it, I told him that I was very proud of him. I remember expressing a lot of pride in him, in his letter, in the way that he handled it. That he shared it. I did tell him that I was really proud of the way that he shared what he had gone through.
Pamela has always encouraged her boys to buckle down and go the extra mile to overcome adversity.
They've just been told, you're going to have to work harder to prove yourself, because your color is what is going to be seen first. Before your work ethic, before any of that other stuff, your color is going to be seen first. And then you're going to have to, once they see what you can do, then they're like, oh, okay. And it's unfortunate, but that's the way it is. And so that's what I always told them. That's what they've been brought up with.
Dominic said he has been fortunate to not experience any racism at the college level. ASU is one of the most diverse rosters in NCAA Division I hockey. His maroon and gold teammates have had his back since practices resumed in early October.
We're going to keep supporting him, and we understand that it's like, recent events is just, it's not right. And, but we're here for Dom on and off the ice.
What he does is very, underrated. I don't think a lot of people, appreciate, the work ethic that he comes in, day out. It's not an easy job to go out there and block shots and put your, body on the line and stuff like that. But he does it, and he does it with a smile on his face.
Garcia's teammates have taken the time to sit down with him and fully understand his experiences.
I talked to Willie Nierum probably for 45 minutes, I think maybe before or right after, and he had no idea. So for him, he just wanted to learn and understand, and so we talked about it, and I think we both come out better because of those conversations.
Over the summer, a group called the Hockey Diversity Alliance gained notoriety, calling to suppress systemic racism and intolerance in hockey. Garcia sees the Alliance's movement as a step in the right direction.
It's hard. Especially something like this, it's not going to change overnight, right? So it's going to take players in the NHL and that alliance or in college all over in years to come to continue it and, try and teach the right things and understand one another.
As he holds up the lineup card and shouts out his teammates' names one by one, Garcia hopes that he provides not just a burst of energy, but a spark for spreading racial equality on and off the ice. For Cronkite Sports Report, I'm Michael Gutnick.
Garcia and the Sun Devils are in the middle of an all-road schedule against Big Ten teams.
When we come back, how going remote has changed the job of scouts in the NHL.
An NHL scout does more than just evaluate talent on the ice. It's about getting to know the mental makeup of players as well.
Caleb Bucci explains how in a remote setting, this part of the job has been even more difficult for scouts.
Since March, the COVID-19 pandemic has created more challenges and obstacles for NHL team scouts than ever before. They are now working remotely with travel restrictions, not being able to see prospects in person, and now relying on archive video.
Even right now, you can't cross into the U.S., from Canada. The border's closed, you can't go in there. Even in Canada now, like the Quebec League has started, they have 3 or 4 franchises in the Maritime provinces. So as an Ontario resident, for me to go to the Maritimes now, I'd have to quarantine for 14 days because I'm coming from Ontario. So even within Canada, there's some quarantine restrictions, especially if you fly.
Scouts, they rely, they have their analytics guys and they have their scouts. Scouts are visual, like they want to see the players. Instead of watching video, looking at charts or analytics, they're watching video.
The pandemic not only makes it harder for scouts, but also players as well. They have to rely on old highlights to show off their skills, which they won't be able to do again in person until the coronavirus is eradicated.
But not all changes from the pandemic have a negative effect. With technology available to have meetings online from anywhere, it will be a feature to use that could soon be permanent for the NHL.
It's going to have a great effect. I think this year maybe not so much. I think next year will be the big test. This year they got about 80% of their season in, and I think by that time most scouting staffs have a pretty good idea of where things are at.
There is no start date yet for the next hockey season, but scouts are still actively recruiting players remotely to help the NHL teams build their roster. I'm Caleb Bucci for Cronkite Sports Report.
Next, we learn the story of a fighter's journey to the top.
Welcome back. An athletic career is rarely a straight shot to the top.
Pitfalls are bound to happen, but as Chris Lopez tells us, no matter how many some face, they just keep pushing forward.
Steven Sharif just won his first professional fight. He is 1-0. Perfect. The path to grasp that single victory has been 3 years in the making and anything but perfect. It was filled with bumps, weird turns, and misfortune. A path that only a fighter could travel and not want to turn back.
It's literally blood that I had shed for this. And they say tears. There was times where I had cried because I lost the fight or I didn't have a good day in the gym. Or I was feeling dejected, like this isn't for me. Sweat. I mean, the gallons of sweat that I put in.
Blood, sweat, and tears are a part of training, but so is starting young. Fighters today begin training around 10 years old and building valuable experience. The 24-year-old didn't start his training until 19.
Experience, like it builds up that muscle memory where you just do things, you don't even have to think about it. Like you get into a certain situation and you get out of it without even having to think.
The pressure is on a little bit more for me because, I don't have those years of experience. But I like it. I like the pressure.
Starting young allows a fighter to make mistakes and ask questions. The critical question for every young fighter is, who should I train with? Sharif's answer to that question was a trainer named Joe Linehauser. The two produced suboptimal results, in Sharif losing 4 of his first 7 fights.
Initially, it felt like a really good step in my career. I just started to see some things like that he wasn't doing, or that I wasn't gaining from our sessions together.
A loss in the championship fight at the Golden Gloves pushed Sharif to look elsewhere. What was found was a former heavyweight contender, Obed Sullivan, who himself had ups and downs in his pro career.
I looked at Obed like, he was a former professional fighter, so I was like, he must know exactly what he's doing.
Mixed results followed. Sharif only fought 2 times under Sullivan's tutelage. Things ended violently with Sharif being knocked out in the final round of the championship fight, where he was dominating. A drastic change needed to be made.
There's levels, and, Joe was one level, Obed was another level. Now I'm on to the next level.
An amateur career with mixed results would push most fighters out of the sport completely. Despite his misfortune, Sharif chose to root himself deeper within the sport by moving to one of the epicenters, Los Angeles, in hopes to turn professional, an unadvisable move to most, but the absolute best option for Sharif.
I think if there's any way that I'm going to make it to where I want to be, if I want to know for sure, that this is for me, I have to go to where the best train.
Where the best train is at Wildcard Boxing Gym. There, Sharif would meet a savvy world champion coach named Eric Brown.
Didn't know if he had it in him to become a great fighter, but he proved me wrong.
A continuous regimen of training, sleep, diet, and a staunch mindset that transformed a soft-spoken kid into a real-deal pugilist. Things were finally beginning to take shape for Sharif, and hope for a pro debut was in sight. And then, COVID-19 happened.
It's stressful, you know, it's anxious, you're anxious, you know, you're nervous, you're stressed out about the future.
The foreseeable future entailed no gyms, no sparring, no training. However, Sharif received help from his uncle to stay ready for when the pro ranks would eventually call his name.
He did his best to try to hold the miss for me, to try to run with me and things like that. And we would watch boxing film. You know, if you can't do one thing, there's something else that you can work on.
The call came in September. Sharif traveled down south to Mexico and earned a unanimous decision victory on November 14th. He's 1-0. Perfect. And nothing else matters.
My puzzle's, you know, still being put together. I'm in the beginning. But just that beginning been tough. But, man, it's been all worth it, man, because the end result is all that matters.
Without a doubt, there's more ups and downs headed Sharif's way, just like there is for all of us. If there's one takeaway from Sharif's journey so far, it is that you were never out of the fight. Chris Lopez, Cronkite Sports Report.
Stephen Sharif is currently looking to book another fight for early next year. That's all for this episode of Cronkite Sports Report.
On behalf of the entire team, thanks for joining us.